Hi. Hi. Okay. Okay, nice to see you. I'll try to keep you awake and be interesting. All right, let me just see the faces so I know who I'm talking to. Hi. Hello. So any of you I've met before? If I've met you before, just raise your hand so I know. No? Oh, you've never met me. Oh, that's good. Okay. Yeah, I know you. Okay, and I know you. Okay, very well. Mwah, mwah. Okay, hi. So sometimes when I come over here to RAJE, I wonder like why I'm here, because I'm obviously not a rabbi, in case you haven't noticed, and I'm not even a rebbitzin. I'm really a regular person. I'm a professor at NYU. How many of you are in university? Just I want to get a feel of who I'm talking to. How many of you are in university studying now? And how many of you are in the workforce? Okay. And if you're in university, how many of you are bachelors, going for your bachelor's? Okay, how many of you are in your master's programs? All right. So I think that the reason I'm here is really because I was really where you are, probably about 100 years ago, a long time ago. And yeah, long time ago. Long time ago. But today, I'm here where I am, and I maybe, possibly, you might find it interesting to hear about my journey and how I've gotten to where I am, because as Rabbi Katzin said, I'm an NYU professor, but I'm also an Orthodox Jew. So, and I wasn't born as an NYU professor, so you probably wonder, how did I get there? And then how does one be an Orthodox Jew and be an NYU professor? They're very, very different. Because as an Orthodox Jew, I keep Shabbat, I light candles, I eat kosher, I have this way of living my life that's the way, the Torah way, the way the Torah guides us to live our lives. But on the other hand, I'm at NYU. I don't know how many of you know about NYU. It's probably the most liberal place in the United States. It's a great place. I love being there. I've been teaching there for 12 years. Before I was teaching at NYU, I got my PhD at NYU. So I'm NYU tried and true. I believe in NYU. I love it. And I also love being an Orthodox Jew. So anybody interested in hearing on how I got to where I am? If you want to hear, raise your hand. Okay. Which part do you want to hear first? The Orthodox Jew part or the NYU part? Okay, we'll take a vote. How many of you want to hear about the NYU part first? Say me. I don't hear you. Who wants to hear the NYU part? And who wants to hear the Orthodox Jew part? Me. Oh, wow, good. Whoa, Rabbi. Very good. Okay, so there's a lot of similarities between me and you, a lot. My parents are also immigrants. Most of your parents, I think, are immigrants. How many of you parents are immigrants? Okay. So my parents are immigrants. They're not immigrants from the Ukraine or Belarus or that part. My parents are, actually my father is from Czechoslovakia, which is on the border of Ukraine. And my mother is tried and true Hungarian. So I grew up with a mother with a heavy accent, and I was very embarrassed. I used to be very afraid to bring my friends home because I was so uncomfortable with her very, very, very Hungarian accent. It was just hard for me because a lot of my friends had American parents. So that part was difficult. The other part also is that my parents, I don't know about your parents, but I'm guessing by being here at RAJE, my parents, since they had gone through a lot of what they went through in the Holocaust, losing their family, my father lost 7 of his brothers and sisters, and his mother was shot in front of him. So his belief in God was very, maybe, the one thing he was not very excited about was the idea of me marrying a rabbi's son. That was not in his big picture of things. He wanted to be a good American. He wanted me to have an excellent education. Education was the most important thing. How many of you are familiar with my story so far? Does it resonate for you? Does it feel like we're kind of in the right place, but 100 years apart? All right, so, that was not his route. His religion was education. You're going to get educated. So there was me and my 4 brothers. 3 of us became doctors. 2 of my other brothers, one brother actually ended up becoming very religious, and I was supposed to marry anybody who was extremely educated. Anybody is familiar with that kind of idea? Marry somebody who's educated. So I was going out with MDs, people who were studying in medical school. I was going out with people from law school. I was going out with people with great degrees. The one thing that was not that important is what their family history was. It was more important that they were educated. And lo and behold, I go to a wedding, my best friend's wedding, and I'm the maid of honor at the wedding, and I see this adorable guy, and I went over to him because he was really, really, really cute. And I said, hi, I don't have any place to hold my pocket, my coat check from my gown. It was a winter night, it was my birthday, it was February 22nd. And it was snowing, and I had my coat check for the coat closet, but I didn't have a gown with a pocket in it. So I went over to this really, really cute guy that happened to be standing there, and I said, do you mind holding my coat check for me? And he seemed really happy about it. So he took my coat check. And then after I marched down the aisle, I was her maid of honor, after I marched down the aisle, he came over to me with a rose and said, do you want to go outside for a walk with me? We went out for a walk, and we went to the chuppah place, you know, where you walk down the aisle. And he said, have you ever walked down a chuppah before tonight? And I said, no, this was the first time. He said, well, let's practice. Get ready, guys. Talk about the opposite of commitment phobia. He said, because we're going to get married. And I said, really? Like, what do you do? He said, I work. I said, great. And where did you go to school? He said, well, I was thrown out of a lot of schools. And I'm thinking, this is not a chance is this happening. But he was really, really cute. And he was just adorable. He had great stories. He was very kind. And I saw it in his eyes. You know, I looked in his eyes, and there was real kindness. And I couldn't have been more right, because you'll hear about the future. The only problem was going home to my parents and telling them I met this really cute guy that I want to go out with. And my mother said, sounds great. What does he do? He works. Well, where did he go to school? Well, he didn't really go to school. It's not happening. And what does his father do? His father's a rabbi. That's not happening. But I don't know, you know, the heart leads us. The heart just takes us away. And sure enough, the next morning when I left my house, the girls will love this, and guys, this is a great lesson for you. The next morning after I met him at the wedding, where this guy tells me I'm gonna marry him, and I know there's not a chance, I walk out my front door, and there he is in a car right outside my front door. Really, aw. So I said, what are you doing here? He said, well, you know, he knew I was in Brooklyn College. He said, I just happened to be passing Brooklyn College. I said, but you don't even live here. You live in East Flatbush. It was nowhere near me. He said, yeah, but I had to come here and there. It wasn't true. He said, do you want to ride? I said, yeah, sure. For me, it was very exciting because we did not have a car. We didn't grow up having a lot of money. We didn't have a car. And I got into the car and I went to Brooklyn College. I did my classes, and guess what? I came out of class, and guess who was at Brooklyn College waiting for me? Very good move, my husband. Well, at that time, just this very cute guy who I was definitely not going to go out with or marry, according to my parents. Well, sure enough, he was there, he was everywhere. I wasn't feeling like I'm being stalked at all, because I loved his kind, beautiful eyes, and he was very good looking and very kind. So, as luck would have it, there was a little bit of a problem. The rabbi called my father and said, hi, Mr. And, you know, your daughter is going out with my son, and by us, you know, we're very Orthodox, and we don't do that kind of thing. If they're going out, they got to move along. So what's going on? And my father said, Rabbi, hold on a moment, please. My father walked into my room, and he said, the rabbi is on the phone. What's going on? And the room was filled with flowers. So he looks around. I said, Ta. He said, yeah, what, is this it? And I said, I think this is it, Ta, this is it. He said, okay, and he let me go. He let it happen, which was very kind of him. And the next night, my parents met the rabbi and his wife, the Rebbitzin, and that was when I entered into the world of real Orthodox Judaism. However, I was educated. My parents, because they were Holocaust survivors, I don't know how many of you, like even though your parents kind of are not really practicing at home, they'll still send you out to Jewish day school, and they'll still send you to yeshiva because they want to keep the tradition going. So I had a good, solid education, but the feeling wasn't there. But my husband, oh my God, he had such faith. He just believed that every single thing that happened to him was as a result of God. So he was extremely successful in business. He was a Hatzalah person. How many of you know about Hatzalah? Hatzalah is a volunteer ambulance organization, and he was one of the people who started Hatzalah. He was a paramedic. He was very, very good at his skills, but he made his money through a furniture business. He did very well in furniture. However, one day somebody called him and said to him, do you want to buy an ambulance company from me? And he loved going out on ambulance calls, but he was doing it all for volunteer. So he said to me, you know what, I think I'm going to do it. So he bought this ambulance company with one ambulance, with 3 wheels on it basically, hardly moved, and he started going out on calls with this little ambulance. Well, he started actually doing very well in the ambulance business, very well. So we went to Israel on one trip, and we went to a rabbi, and he spoke to the rabbi, and he said to the rabbi, you know, I have this furniture business, I'm doing very well, and I have this ambulance business that really doesn't make any money, but I love it because it is about doing acts of kindness. It makes me feel really good. It's where my passion is. I know I'm not making any money in this. The furniture business is making a lot of money. And at that point, oh, I forgot this part. When we got married, I got pregnant right away, so we had one beautiful daughter named Michal, and then right afterwards, I got pregnant again with a set of triplets. So there I was at the age of 20, it's been quite a life, at the age of 26 with 4 children under the age of 4. My daughter Michal and my triplets, Azriel, Ariella, and Racheli. So that was very exciting. So he said to the rabbi, I do need to make a living, so I need the furniture business. And the rabbi said, well, you know what? I'm giving you a bracha, a blessing, that you should go into the ambulance business. Keep the ambulance business, give up the furniture business. So there we are, starting all over again. I was working in the meantime. At that point, I was teaching high school math. I was not making money to bring in real money at all. So we were living very, very, very meagerly, but everything was good. We were happy. It's all about faith, kindness, and happiness. So we were very happy, all was good. Well, guess what? The ambulance business went from 1 ambulance to 2, to 4, to 6, to 70, to 200. And Shlomo, my husband, Shlomo Zakheim, ended up becoming the owner of all the ambulance companies in New York City. He worked with he was a private company, he worked with 911. His whole life was not only about ambulances, he also decided, we were up, how many of you go up to the Catskill Mountains? We were up in the, is this too much information? No. I've got you? Okay. So we were up in the Catskill Mountains, and what bothered Shlomo about the Hatzalah calls was that if a little child had a very bad accident up in the mountains, either a burn or a drowning accident or something like that, it would take very long to get the child from the Catskills up to Westchester, which is the best place for little children to go when they have an accident. It would take too long, we'd get stuck in rush hour traffic. So he decided he was going to start something new at Hatzalah up in the Catskills, and he bought a helicopter. And he put down a helipad for a helicopter, and from then on, all children or people who had terrible, terrible emergency situations were rushed to his helicopter and medevac to Westchester or NYU or wherever they needed to go. So, and then he bought a plane, and he used the plane to fly people from different places to get surgeries in different places. Or he would use the plane to fly organs for people who needed organs. So his whole life, I talked about his kind eyes. I couldn't have judged better. His whole life was devoted to helping people. It ended up being about ambulances. It ended up being about medevac. It ended up being about airplanes. Everything that he could do for a mitzvah, he was in the picture. He just lived and died for it. He had something called the Dream Team. You know, you've heard of Make-A-Wish Foundation, where they give a child something? So he created something called the Dream Team for little kids, Jewish kids, because Make-A-Wish is for everybody, and he wanted to specifically help Jewish kids. Make-A-Wish was for kids that had something, and there was, I think I've told this story, but I guess none of you have heard it, but it's such a beautiful story. If there was somebody who was very, very sick, he would bring something. So he got iPods or iPads for all the kids at Memorial Sloan Kettering so they could have that. One kid wanted to meet Justin Bieber. He brought down Justin Bieber. He got kids tickets for Knick games, and he would organize wheelchair and oxygen and everything so that the kids could go to the Knick games and the Ranger games. They were able to do everything. One of the kids that was, there was a little girl, 15 years old, whose name was Nechama. And Nechama was very, very, very sick. She had a terrible, terrible cancer. And she was just getting sicker and sicker. So Shlomo approached her and said to her, what's your wish? Let me give you what you want. You know, you're so sick. Let's make you happy. She said, my wish is to swim with the dolphins at the Atlantis Hotel. Any of you have heard of the Atlantis in the Bahamas? Her wish was to swim with the dolphins. So Shlomo called the doctors, who he was very close with, and he said, you know what? She wants to go to the Atlantis. She wants to swim with the dolphins. She's so sick. We don't know how long she's going to make it. Let me take her. Let me take her to the Atlantis, and I'll take all the nurses. I'll take all the doctors. I'll take everybody that you need. And the doctor said, no, we can't let her go. She'll never make it back. It can't happen. He said, oh, please. They said, no, please, no. Okay, so she couldn't go. One day the doctors called and they said, take her. She's not going to make it. No amount of chemo, no surgery, no nothing is going to save this girl's life. She is not going to make it. Just take her. Do whatever you want to do. So Shlomo took Nechama on his jet, together with doctors, nurses, oxygen tanks, everything. And Nechama got onto a dolphin together with the oxygen tank, with the oxygen in her nose, and we have a video of Nechama on the dolphin, flying through, giggling and laughing. And she made it back. The people in the Atlantis, they were overcome. They had never seen so much love given to a child. And it was such, it's called a Kiddush Hashem, which means that it is sanctifying God's name. To see Jews with yarmulkes doing this wonderful thing for a very, very sick child. That was another thing about Shlomo. Now that I mentioned the yarmulke, Shlomo would go nowhere without his yarmulke, his kippah. It didn't matter if he was he went to Russia many times because he went to Russia to do brisim. He had a crew of people that went to Russia to do brisim. Even if it was dangerous, if he went to Azerbaijan and he would be harassed for having a yarmulke, he would never go without a yarmulke. So while he was at the Atlantis, the yarmulke was there, and all these people knew that it was a Jewish organization that was taking care of this little girl. So they took her, she went on the dolphin, she went right through with the dolphin fly. How many of you have done it, the dolphin? Is it not amazing? It's amazing. So you could only imagine how much she was giggling. And then they landed in New York, and Nechama passed away 2 hours later. But she got her dream. It gets better. About 2 months later, they called Shlomo from the Atlantis, and they said, the dolphin that Nechama was on is pregnant, and we're expecting a baby. Sure enough, the dolphin was born. That dolphin is named Nechama. Exactly. Not only that, if you go to the Atlantis, there is a picture of Nechama there with the dolphin that she was on, and I've already gone on Nechama, the dolphin, and I've taken my granddaughter on the dolphin. And he was always he had this place of tranquility. He was never anxious. He just always believed in God. He just believed that every single thing that happened, whether it was good, whether a business made $1 million or whether a business lost $1 million, he knew that God was doing it and that it was only for good reasons. Shlomo ended up getting leukemia. He was a 9/11 responder. He was down by 9/11 a lot of time. He was there when 9/11, when both of the buildings went down. Most of you were like little tiny kids at that time, but he was there when Building 1 went down, and he was there when Building 2 went down. Besides being there when the buildings went down and his partner died over there, he felt that he had been saved by Hashem, by God, that God wanted him here to continue on doing good deeds. So as much as he was doing good deeds before, he only became stronger after 9/11. It made him believe in God even more. And during that time, he went down to 9/11 a lot. He had all the ambulances, so he was there as much as he could be to save lives. He had saved a fireman's life and ended up in Time magazine for that, and his picture is hanging at the museum, at the Memorial Museum. He saved lives. he was, he felt that time, because God did not take his life away, that he owed more to doing more things and being more helpful. And he, well, okay, this is where it gets a little bit emotional for me. A few years after 9/11, Shlomo was diagnosed with leukemia, and the doctors said it was probably because of the amount of time that he had spent over there. But you're going to ask me a question. When he got the leukemia, did he change at all? Did he lose his faith in God at all? Did he think that this was a terrible thing that happened? Not at all. Not at all. In fact, he spoke to kids with cancer, because this was what he did all the time. This was his thing. And he said to them that, he said to the children with cancer, I understand you now, because he always worked with children with cancer. He said, now I understand you, and I thank God for giving me this disease so that I can understand the lives that you are living. That was the amount of faith that this man had. So I consider myself so fortunate that I went from one life into another life, and that I had the opportunity not only to meet this person, but to be married to somebody like this and have my life intertwined together with his. Why is all of this so important? Because once he passed away, because of the way that he was and because of the way I watched him lead his life and do all of this kindness, I was not going to let go of that life. So my vision was for me to continue our vision together, actually, because he had leukemia for 9 months, so we had a lot of time to talk about it. So the vision was that I would carry on and do the things that he would do things with kindness. And the faith is a really interesting thing, because he was born into it. He had a rabbi, he had the easy way, When you're not born with it, it's different. But when you watch it and you see somebody live this kind of life, you say, I want that too. I want to have that sense of tranquility, that sense of serenity, that sense of non-anxiety. I don't want to be an anxious person. I want to feel good, So where I carried it on to, the things about Shlomo, one of the main things that I carried it on to was I decided that I would start traveling and always be part of the island of tranquility. And my island of tranquility is Shabbat. I love Shabbat. I will never do Shabbat without having 24 people at my table. That's my number. My table fits 24. Sometimes we'll put more, but I know that I will have my island of tranquility. I will have a time where I'm not looking at my cell phone. I'm not worried about anything. I am in a place of serenity. I'm in that place that Shlomo lived his entire life. And now I'm living that entire life. And I love it. I treasure it. I cherish it. And that's my story. You wanted that part.